Hello, welcome back to this second part of this topic. In the previous class, we actually explored the database shape, how to actually get the database shape. So the database allows us to insert and read from the database. For this in this particular place, we'll be looking at how to insert. Later on, we'll be seeing how to actually read results out from the database. It's very pretty easy. So basically, what are we trying to do in this process? We are going to be sending a JSON into the system, and um we'll be expecting it to insert into the database. So currently, what's our database currently? What does our database look like? I'm just going to refresh this. I'll do a refresh, select all from the database. So this is what we have in the database. So we'll just be trying to insert a new set of values into this database, into this table called transactions. So let's get started. So first of all, we want to create a listener, and this listener will be exposed as an API, a web service. So this web service is ideally to listen. Yes. The next thing is the connection. In terms of connection, the operation. The operation is we are trying to define what type of object comes in and what type of object goes out. So I'm just going to call this JSON insert. So my object, I also call this JSON insert. Now the expected input type, I'm expecting a JSON file. So I'm going to have a structure, something similar to this. Yes, with different names. I'm just going to create a new record. We'll create a new record together, and we'll be inserting into the database. So the profile, what profile are we going to be using? If you've been following the series, we created different profiles um, over the past time. So I'll just show you some. Let's see this. If I click on this, so we have this profile called JSON profile transactions, which it's in the root element we have an object, and we have from states, to state, amount, customer name, and address. However, in case you just want me to do it all over again, so for those that are just actually watching the database part of this course, because the database operations are quite unique, so I just want to focus on the database. I'll just create one. So I'm going to do um, JSON formats. So I'm going to I'll create a new profile, a new profile of myself. So from the root, I'm going to be saying it's an object, because in your JSON, you first have your objects and you have other things inside. So I want to add my entries inside the objects. I want to add 5 entries because I have 5 fields. If you can remember what's on the, we have 5 fields: from, state, to state, amount, customer name, and address. So all I'll just be doing here is I'll just be renaming it. I'll click on the first one, I'll rename this, I'll rename the second one, the third one is amount, sorry, I'll just type this, fourth one, customer name, and the fifth one is an address. Okay, I'll just save and close. So do we expect the output to be like? So we are sending a JSON with various parameters. What do we want the output to be like? We want it to be a JSON object as well. You can actually create an XML, but it's ideal that when you're sending in JSON, you're expecting JSON to come out as well. So the response output, I've actually worked on a response output that we are just going to use. Um, so let's see. Okay, we don't. I'll just create one all over again, a new one. Create new. So I'll just give it. I'll call it response. In the root element, I'm going to make this an object, and I'm going to have two elements inside my object. So the first one is going to be status, and the next one is going to be the message. So which can actually be a status, can be status 200 message success. Those are sample response messages we use easily commonly. So I can close this. Yeah. So I'm done setting up the listener. The next thing I actually want to do is a map shape. So in the map shape, I'm going to be processing. I'll just call this processor. So I'm going to work on the map operation. So I'll just do Json to db. Now what we want to do here is to choose the profile. I'm going to do a JSON here, and I'm going to say I selected, we just created JSON format, so I select JSON format which contains this. And what am I sending out? Send out a database. Now the database, we don't have any profile, so we are going to create a new one. So I'm going to click on new. So I'm going to just call this insert transaction. So I click on statements. What I love to do is I just come to import here. I click on statements. I come to import. I use on database connection, which we already set up in the previous class. I say okay, use Boomi cloud, and actually let's see what's in this database. So it exposes the database to us because we already have a username and password in the database. So we're just going to be seeing what is in the database, the names of the table and the rest. So I'm just going to select this transactions because that's the only table we have in the database. I say okay. So I want to import everything here except the ID. The reason I'm not importing the ID because I'm working with the ID is auto increments, so I'm just going to be leaving it blank. The database handles that part for me. So I'm not worried about the next number to put in as my ID since it's an insert operation. So I click next. Just one thing we need to do is in the operation here, in the options here, you need to make sure that this is a write because we are writing into the database. Now what does this change? If you see, when we had read here, we had a parameter field. This is when you want to actually do a select statement, select from your database. However, when you want to do an insert operation, you need to do a write operation. So that's remove the parameter field. So let's see. Because of what we did, we removed I will just do this. Hold on. I'm going to import I'm going to do dynamic insert here. I'm going to import. I'm just doing the same thing all over again, but it's just the previous time I was showing how to just read, but now I'm actually, because we want to write, we'll be doing a write operation. So it takes some few seconds. So I select my table. I select everything except ID. So if you can see the fields, the fields are automatically populated for us. You don't need to actually worry about any other thing. That's the best part of this. So easy. So I'm just going to close this. So we have this fields all here. So I can actually start dragging one by one, but I just love using Boomi suggest because it's a great tool out there. And as you can see here, we have a all the suggestions actually high confidence. So if you're new to, you don't know what Boomi suggest is Boomi suggest just allows you to you have various objects to map. You want to copy from state to from state. You want to copy from address to address. Rather than spending a lot of time doing it, we allow Boomi to suggest for us, okay, how using the names and other this field structures, what does it think this is, what field is mapped to what field. So with Boomi suggest, it helps us just do this easily. Yeah, clicking, all you just do is clicking next and select all you want to do and finish. It helps us do the mapping. If you have over 20 fields, I think it's always advisable you review them one by one, to avoid errors. So I'm going to save and close. Okay. So the next thing now is we want to be able to insert this into the database directly. Now, however, from experience, this is a little bit challenging because if you insert this into directly into the database, after this, because there's no outputs from this insert process, we won't be able to process further down the line. So what I love to do is I love to use a branch shape here, a branch shape. I put a branch shape, said okay, just do two. I call this split. What happens is when it comes to the end of the line here, it comes and pick up from step 2. So that's what happens here, because if I put something here, if I put anything here, it makes it Boomi doesn't continue the processing further after this shape. So but if I split it into two, I'll be able to get further informations about about my processing, whether it was successful or not. More interesting ways of doing it, you can actually use try and catch statements, which we will see later on in the class. How to use a try and catch block. You can actually search it here. You'll see your catch. You see a try how to use a try and catch here, but we'll actually come to that later on in the course. So basically, what we want to do now, we want to actually have a message here. Yeah, because we want to actually returning back to the user. Oh, your process message documents processed. So I will just do a message define. What do we want to do here? We want to have a JSON object. So like you can remember, we had status. So we'll give this let's see, so O2, which means assuming it makes successfully in our organization. This is differs from organization to organization. Then the message we give success. So I'm just going to be clicking this and saying okay. And the next thing is I want to actually send this out as a return. So it goes back to a server. I just call this return. The last bit of this will be actually to join everything together and deploy this. So I can say I still have configure here. I'll just click on this to see what it is. I have an operation that is not configured. Probably it was not saved. I'll just look into this. Okay, yeah. So basically, the database operation, what am I trying to do is I'm trying to select the profile that I actually want to insert into the database. So I click on the profile that was actually defined previously, and that's all you just need to do in this step. You just select the profile that you defined from your map process. I click on save because your data is already in that. Your data is already in this the your data is actually currently in the profile that was defined here. So I'm just going to join all this together, and I'll be creating it as a components, and we'll be testing it right away. So I think we are done. I'll just save and I'll arrange this. I'll create it as a component. Yeah. Deploy. I'm declared I'm working with is dev environment. Yes. So and we just deploy. So we currently have it deployed. So the next thing I want to do is actually to be able to test this. So I'm going to duplicate this tab on my postman. We currently have a very good sample data. However, what is the URL that we will be calling here? You come to your listener and you copy this URL here, get Json and set. So that's my URL, and I'm just going to be inserting from states. I'll be using New York, two states. I'll leave it as California. Amount, let's make it 60 dollars. The customer name, let's make it linked out, and the address we can keep it, just make a little change to this address. Okay, and I'm going to send this and see whether it hits our database. So that's the essence of this course. So okay, currently we see we have a status error, but I'll show you what's interesting here. Let's check the database actually whether we were able to save this data. I'm just going to select this, select all from transactions, and you can see we have our data from New York. This is a new value, New York, California 16, linked out, and this. So in the next session, I'll be showing how to actually correct this error you have here. So basically, it's we are trying to process an output, but it's not the right format. I'll be showing you how to actually come across how to actually resolve this in the next training. So thank you for this, and looking forward to seeing the next session. Thank you.